Welcome back to the Career Deck, the space where we discuss everything career, people development, and growth. I am Catherine.N.Kisekka. So in our previous videos, we have been talking about pregnancy at work, how to manage pregnancy at work, and now we are going to talk about how do you plan to return to work after your maternity leave. So after you've had the baby and you've been home, you've been having your maternity, being home with the baby, you need to plan how to go back to work. And there are different things you can go through when you're planning to go back to work. And some of them include your health. You have to first think about your health. Because remember, you've been at home for these 3 months. You've been having sleepless nights. You've been looking after the baby. You've been trying to do some different changes because now you're a new mom. You have to say, how am I doing health-wise? That's the first thing you have to think about. Did I heal well? Do I have any other medication that I'm taking? If you've looked through your health and you know that now you're fine, now you have to look at the health of the baby. Remember, by this time when you're returning to work, the baby is around 3 months and above. So check that are the baby's immunizations done? Is he well? Is she or he well? After thinking about their health, now you're set. Health is okay, baby is okay. Now you're going to think about, how do I plan to care for this baby while I'm away? You could have been breastfeeding the child exclusively, or you could have been maybe bottle feeding or doing both of them. So now that you're planning to go back to work, you need to see, am I going to continue breastfeeding? If you've chosen breastfeeding, you're going to see, how do I plan for this storage? Maybe you have to think about, how am I going to work on my production while at work? Because remember, you're not going to be with a baby full time this time. Or how am I going to plan for the storage? The person I'm going to leave this child with, do they know how to store the breast milk? Teach them how to handle it hygienically? How do I, maybe if I'm going to warm it, everything related to breastfeeding and storage, make sure you think about it and plan for it if you're going to continue breastfeeding. But if the baby has been bottle fed, or you're thinking about bottle feeding, or it's something you thought about that you would do when you go back to work, it will be good if you actually think of bottle feeding the child during your maternity leave. It's a good time for you to plan to start on how to feed this baby with the bottle. For example, let me say from the 2nd month, you introduce the bottle to the baby when you're still at home, so that you see, how are they transitioning? Is this bottle working for me? Are they, as you use the bottle, you can actually use breast milk also in the bottle. But if you're going to do formula, you also try out the formula during that time when you're still on maternity, so that you're not shocked. Because there are instances where you actually go back to work, you've just left the formula at home, but the baby might refuse to use the bottle. Maybe because how the nipple is, maybe it's hard, maybe it is small. So it's good for you to train the baby while you're still on maternity for those, at least for 1 month from your 2nd month. And you try out and see, does this one work? Can I change? What do I have to add? So you looked at your own health. Now you've scanned what will I leave the baby with when I go back to work. Now you need to look at who is going to care for the baby while you are away. Here, that is when you need a support system. You may be lucky that you're able, maybe you can take the child to your parents or the child's grandparents actually. But if it's not possible, you have to start searching for a nanny, for someone who stays with the baby at home when you're away. And it is also good if this person is actually introduced while you're still on maternity leave, and you train them how to carry the baby, see how they carry the baby, teach them how you want the baby to be carried. Also, teach them how to feed the baby, how to bathe the baby. Give them some few safety tips on how to handle the baby while you are away. Then you also have to look at the security, because remember, the person you're living with here is going to be very bombarded with the baby's work and the baby's care. It's a lot of care. So you also have to look at the security. Now these days it's possible you could put maybe security cameras that you can even monitor when you're at your desk, when you're working at office. When you put security cameras, you're able to monitor the baby to confirm when you actually give a phone call and confirm, is the baby well? Is actually what they're telling me what is actually happening at home. So safety and security is also very paramount to think about while you're going to work. After you've thought about your safety, your health, care for the baby, now we start thinking about work. You need to scan the environment. Remember, you've been at home for the last 3 months. You also have to start keeping abreast of what has been happening at work. First, scan the environment and see. For example, get some reports maybe for the previous month before you return, and get abreast of what is happening at work, so that when you come back, you're not bombarded, you're overwhelmed with what is happening in office. Then you're also worried about the baby at home. But if you got to know what was happening before, just a few months before you returned, you'll not be surprised and you'll have a smooth transition. Now, I understand that after you return to work and everything is set, you're going to continue thinking about your baby at home. And you may have mom guilt. You feel guilty that you've left the baby at home. Maybe you should have been there. The baby is still tiny. They are still young. And you might feel really guilty. But I want to let you know that mom guilt is real, but it's okay. Every mother feels it. But if you're sure that where the baby is safe, that where the baby is, they are safe and they are being taken care of, and you're also monitoring, and you also pray. You pray for the child's safety. You also pray for the safety of the person who is looking after your child. It will reduce on your mom guilt. And also, babies, they grow. They grow. They grow. When you leave them home for some time, they grow as you're also working, because you cannot just stay home because you are feeling guilty or what, because we all know you all have to work, and you also have to make sure you're able to feed this child that you're putting into the world. Returning back to work after maternity can be very stressing. It gets out of your normal that you had created at home. But I want to let you know that you can take one day at a time. Take one day at a time and try to see what has worked for me today, what has worked for me this week. And as you go back slowly, you transition from home to work. So do not stress yourself. Try not to be overwhelmed, and take one day at a time. It is also important to put into consideration that going back to work is only safe when the baby is safe. There are incidences where maybe the child has special needs, or the child may require more attention, and you've not actually been able to get someone who will safely look after this child when you're not around. Sometimes some mothers have multiples like twins or triplets, and going back to work after the 3 months which is given is not viable, and they actually require more time. In those incidences, try to see, what are my options? Am I able to be given extra time at work, maybe an extra 2 months, and I stay home so that maybe I go back to work when the child is 6 months or 5? If it's entirely impossible for you to actually get time or extra time off your maternity leave to look after your child, if they are multiples, those are the twins, or special needs children, then it would be good if you ask for maybe sabbatical leave, or if all options are not okay for you or in your favor, then you can take off work maybe a year or 2. And if the job is yours, you'll always actually get another job, because the safety of your child is better than returning back to work when they are not safe, because you'll also not be settled. Being at work and you're half, the baby is okay, the baby is not okay. Having evaluated the situation and you agreed that taking extra time off work to look after this child is the best, you need to also check in with your spouse and have an agreement with them. Because if you're going to be away from work for over a year, it's something you need to agree with your spouse so that you can be able to support each other during this time. Returning from work can be a very major transition for a woman, because remember, now you're a mother and you need to learn to integrate life, work, motherhood, and also being a wife. But working with a clear plan, like how we have discussed on transitioning or going back to work after maternity leave, can be a smooth road for you. So keep trying, keep seeing what works for me and what does not work for me until you get what aligns for you. Until next time, I am Catherine.N.Kisekka, here at the Career Deck, helping you achieve professional greatness.